going live on YouTube. And Charlie, we're going to you in 5, 4, 3.
Hey there, good evening. This is Charlie Cook, and I am from Riding Shotgun with Charlie, and I am going to be on with some other folks here on the Arms Society podcast. We're glad to have you guys here on YouTube. We're glad to have you here on Facebook, and if you are listening to the show in podcast form, please make sure you subscribe to this show and a lot of others that are on the Self-Defense Radio Network. It is all of your pro-freedom podcasts in one place. All right, so let me tell you about myself. I'm Charlie. I have a show called Riding Shotgun with Charlie. It is on YouTube. It's on Gunstreamer. It's on the Ops Lens. You can listen to it in podcast form as well. And I interview people as we drive around the country and talk about guns and gun issues and gun folks. The next person that I'd like to have introduce themselves is Tatiana Whitlock.
Good evening. Thank you guys for having me on the show. So my name is Tatiana Whitlock. I am the National Director of Training for A Girl and a Gun Women's Shooting League, which is a wonderful nationwide organization bringing thousands of women together, new and experienced and competitive shooters alike, all out to the range for a wonderful time, tons of safety, and lots of education. I'm also the Director of Training for Howell's Gun Shop, the wonderful and beautiful indoor range located in Gray, Maine. And then I train nationally under my own brand, Tatiana Whitlock Training in Context. Any of that information can be found with a quick Google search of my name. I'm also honored to be a participant on programs like Trigger Time TV, podcasts such as this, Civilian Carry Radio, and Simply Armed Radio. So I'm looking forward to evenings.
All right, Tatiana, thanks for joining us. Next, we have Rick Ector from Detroit. Rick, please tell us about yourself and introduce you to everyone.
Hi, I run a gun rights advocacy site called Legally Armed in Detroit. I also run Rick's Firearm Academy of Detroit. A signature event that I do every year is to train a lot of women to be introduced safely to firearms and to teach them how to shoot. This event I started 9 years ago. Me and a bunch of friends got together, fellow trainers, and we trained 50 women how to load and operate a handgun. Well, earlier this year in August, that program has grown substantially. And over a 2-day period back in August, we trained 1,945 women how to shoot a handgun in one day. My goal is to make this event 2 days at two different gun ranges for next August, and I am actively seeking firearms trainers who are willing to come to Detroit. This past iteration, we had several instructors join us from all across the country to be a part of that. Would invite people to learn more about what we do. In addition, I am a National Rifle Association training counselor, firearms instructor, chief range safety officer, dishwasher, and cook. Thanks for having me on the show.
That's a plateful, man. Holy moly.
Especially that chief cook and bottle washer, man. That's
important.
Right. It really is. The last person that we have, and it's not that he's the last person, he's the one that's doing all the work. It is Paul Lathrop. Paul Lathrop is the Deputy Director of the Second Amendment Foundation, and we were doing some pre-show. We found out that he has 9 shows that he produces for the Second Amendment Foundation for the Self-Defense Radio Network, and Rick was trying to smoosh him into adding one more.
Yeah, let me make one correction, Charlie. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media. I'm not Deputy Director of the whole thing. You know, they treat me well, but I'm not that high up in the hierarchy yet. I am the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. I've got the Polite Society podcast that I do every week. I do the Weekly Bullet, which is a daily 15-minute interview with people who are making a difference in the gun rights struggle. And then I've got the Weekly Bullet that happens on Fridays, except when there's a holiday on Friday. And that is a 1-hour weekly news discussion with two other people who are regular commentators in the gun rights world. People like Cam Edwards, people like Tom Gresham, Rob Morse, a lot of people that really know what are going on. We get together, we talk about the news of the week. That's kind of what I do. I do some video productions for a few other shows, but mainly my focus is the daily, the weekly bullet, and the Polite Society podcast.
The important thing with me for introducing you, Paul, was to make sure I got the deputy director part, not the social media part.
Okay.
Because I'm like, he's some sort of director, and I forget what it is. He's the director of social media, but there's another word, and I wasn't sure if it was the sheriff director of social media. I forget.
No, just
all right.
Just call me the king of all media. To heck with Howard Stern.
There we go. Love it. All right. Well, this is a relatively informal, even though we did have some things that we wanted to try to discuss. Let's just talk about some general things. How has everything been going for all of you guys this year, for as far as training and instructing? I know, Rick, you've got your big event was supposed to be Mother's Day weekend, and you ended up having to postpone it because of I call it the virus that shall not be named.
Yeah, I had it scheduled for, I usually do it the weekend after Mother's Day, at least for the last 4 or 5 years. And we went through a COVID shutdown, and so we were down and, on hiatus, I guess is how you would describe it. And we came out of hiatus like in August. And right after we had been back open for a week or so, the governor was like, okay, we're shutting it back down. And I was like, well, you know what? Go ahead and shut Michigan down if you want to. I'm still going to do this event. I had every idea that I would probably get shut down by someone, but we didn't. And we trained an awesome number of women on how to be introduced to firearms and how to safely shoot. Last year, we did just under 900 women in terms of introducing them to firearms. And this year, we rolled out to a 2-day event. We established a 1-day record of 1,200 at one gun range. And then the next day, we did another 738 additional women. So, yeah, we grew by leaps and bounds. Of course, we had to take into account some safety protocols with everything that's going on. But next year, looking to eclipse this goal, this target we've already established. Next year, man, we're looking at 2 locations, 2 days each, back to back, one crazy weekend on the weekend of August 21st through the 22nd. Who knows? We might train 4,000 women in 2 days.
That would be completely amazing. That would be really cool. I can't guarantee it, but I do want to try to make it out for that. I think that would be really cool. See you.
Oh man, don't try to make it out. Don't try to make it out. I'll volunteer. I love volunteer. I would love to have you there. Please come.
Plugging it in.
And Charlie, don't try to come. I'm not telling you not to come. I'm telling you not to try to come. What does that mean?
It means I need to put it in my phone as well.
Yes.
What was the date? August.
This is happening.
What was it? The second weekend in August? I'll get it.
August 21st and the 22nd.
21 and 22. All right, I'm going to add it to my phone, and I'm going to make it happen. Deal? All right. So Tatiana, when you're done putting Tatiana,
well, I just volunteered for the largest women's training event ever of 2021. So it's happening. We're going to get this, see if I can help contribute to making it bigger. So this year has been an unprecedented year. My personal training schedule saw a couple of reschedules and postponements at the onset of the virus that shall not be named. However, in July in Maine, we kicked back into high gear. And with the high volume of new people purchasing firearms for the first time, we have been nonstop. There are not enough days in the week or hours in the day to accommodate everybody who's now seeking out training, which is probably the most exciting thing that I could have seen this year is a real resurgence in communities that were strong gun cultures but didn't have a strong training culture to run in tandem with that, like Maine. And that has changed fundamentally. We cannot reach enough people. And so we keep adding classes, bringing quality instructors on board to make sure that we get the gun safety and storage safety and home children coexist peacefully safety skills and habits in place, so that we not only arm citizens, but that we make them responsible, knowledgeable members of the Second Amendment community. So that's been a really fun piece of it. We had an incredible event with a girl and a gun this year. We took the virus, I'm going to check myself, Charlie, so I don't say it. The virus that shall not be named did not slow us down. We have our annual A Girl and a Gun National Conference that brings about 400 women and 40 amazing trainers together for a week-long event. And of course, that virus shut us down. It didn't stop us, though. All of those instructors contributed virtual sessions to the first online national conference that we've ever had. And we retained almost all 400 participants through that medium. Robin Sandoval and Juliana Crowder, the owners and backbone of A Girl and a Gun, the beating heart and soul of A Girl and a Gun, championed an event that was amazing. And we've created an incredible knowledge library and resource for our membership online as a result of those instructor contributions. We held live sessions, we had one-on-ones, we had incredible material contributed. So we soldiered on. If there's a will, there's a way, and man, we found it. So that was pretty exciting.
That is pretty amazing.
Hey,
I do remember hearing Robin.
Where is your secret source of ammo? Training all the women you do, you have a good source for ammo. Where are you getting your ammo for? I need ammo, right?
You know, I think the world needs ammo. I mean, ammo more than toilet paper at this point. You know, a lot of our membership, we've been working with women for, I think, a decade now. A Girl and a Gun has been in place. And so our membership knows that they need to have a healthy supply on hand. You know, they're not box to box or range session to range session. So what we've been doing to make sure people get their range time in is really pushing high repetition, low round count sets. A large workup of before we do live fire, and then that live fire is very meaningful, high rep, low round count activity to maximize the work you're doing and the benefit of that ammo usage at the range. And then many of the classes we're teaching at my home range in Maine, we have ammo on reserve. While it's not on the shelves, we have it on reserve for people coming in to train. So purchase a firearm, yes, you're going to be ammo. If you want to take a class, we've got ammo to make sure you can. With no gas in the tank, we can't drive the train. So we've got to make sure that people who want to come in and invest in their knowledge, that we make that possible. And that's really how we've been doing it.
Okay.
That's
well,
cool.
Like I said, I'm going to be training probably 4,000 women how to shoot 30 rounds each. And that adds up very quickly. And I am not above asking you. I just met you today, and I'm like, hey, I need
some good connections. That's a heck of a cost, and that reaches so many people. There's got to be some manufacturer out there who wants to get behind an event like that.
That would be way cool. Way cool. All right, Paul, how about you? Anything new and exciting with you? You're the media, the king of all media.
New, I mean, if we're talking about training, I was able to get through a really cool training class in October and November, and it was a different kind of a class. We met every Thursday for 2 hours on Thursday evening over a 6-week period, and we actually had to skip a week because Thanksgiving came in there. But usually when I've done training, it's been I bring an instructor in over a weekend, and we all do a lot of shooting over a 2 to 3 day period. In Masada Yube's case, a 4-day period, and it's drinking from a fire hose. This was little nibbles. over a 6-week period. 1 week we'd practice this, and then we'd go home and we'd have a dry fire assignment that we'd have to complete, and then the next week we'd practice something else. And it got to the point, I've always considered myself a pretty fair shooter. I am not on the caliber of Tatiana. I'm not on the caliber of Rick. I'm certainly not at the caliber of a Masada Ayub or Kathy Jackson. But I consider myself okay. And I really improved by going through this course. And I think the reason I improved is because I did do every 3 days a week faithfully get out and do my dry fire practice. And it got to the point where I passed the FBI pistol qualifications at the instructor level, and I was really pleased as punch about that. And I don't consider myself an instructor. I'm the guy who books instructors to come in and teach, but I myself am not an instructor, I don't believe.
That's pretty cool. I remember seeing you put that up on Facebook that you did the you passed the qualification and you were doing the class. So that's awesome. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about some stuff. Some of the things that I wanted to talk about is there was an article from the Firearm Policy Coalition, and it was titled "Joe Biden Wants to Push for States to Require Gun Licensing and Pass Red Flag Laws." And from reading the article, what it looked like is what he wanted to do is to do the same thing that they do with the highways, and say, hey, listen, if you meet these requirements for the highways and the regulations and all this sort of crap, then we'll give you some of your money back in a tax break or some sort of incentive. And the more we talk to people from around the country, the more I find out that there are states that don't have the licensing requirements that I do in Massachusetts. So here we have to have a license to purchase or possess anything. But in other states, you don't have to. If you want to have a permit to carry, then you have to get a permit for that. And I'm not a guy, as much as I appreciate the training, as much as I have students of my own that I teach, I don't want the government to come out and say, this is what you need to do. These are the requirements. If you don't meet these requirements, then you can't have a gun, or you can't get a concealed carry permit. And I'm not a fan for that. How about you guys?
Oh, well, I'm definitely not a fan of red flag laws, man. I done a lot of speaking to the media and appeared on a variety of shows here in the Metro Detroit area in which I am a very vociferous critic of those laws. There was one local show here in Detroit, the Fox affiliate, that was doing a profile of a local state congressman who wanted to enact a push towards that here in Michigan. And those people who push red flag laws, they do a very good job of misleading the public. And in a nutshell, they were hailing this legislation as a tool that will empower families with troubled members whose conduct did not rise to the level of breaking a law, but enable them to get their family members some help. And the more I looked into red flag laws, I was really horrified at what these laws actually do. And I've been an outspoken critic of them ever since. The fact that the provision in this bill that they were floating here in Michigan, man, they were exploring the possibility of people that you do not know having a meeting in secrecy about your alleged conduct and being able to make certain statements under oath that your conduct somehow rose to a certain level that required your civil liberties to be violated, and for your Second Amendment right to be infringed, and for your personal property to be taken away from you in a pre-dawn raid. And of course, if they did not manage to kill you, then you would have to come up with thousands of dollars to petition the court to get your property back. And to me, it's just elimination of due process. Be arrested, be prosecuted, and then be forced to pay to prove yourself innocent. I just call it plain evil.
Yeah, it completely is against the innocent until proven guilty sort of stuff. Because I guess my concern is that if one of my kids' friends for some reason doesn't like, who knows, something that I've said, something that I've done, that I'm a gun instructor, that they can go out and say, hey, listen, you know what, Charlie said this about us, and we feel threatened with him because he's got some guns. We want to get a red flag on him, and then have them come in and take all my stuff, and then I'm completely out of luck about things. What I find also frustrating is we sort of have this already with restraining orders. Like if somebody thinks that I'm a threat to them, they can file a restraining order, and yes, the restraining order is just paper. We all know this. We all know the stories of women that had restraining orders in abusive relationships, and they end up still getting harmed or beaten or even killed because all they had was a restraining order to protect them. But we kind of have those with restraining orders already. If somebody wants to come in, I know that in Massachusetts, if somebody had a restraining order pulled on me, then they would come in, they would take my gun license, they would take all my guns away from me until everything was hashed out.
Mm-hmm. To your point, Charlie, the red flag laws are something that are, like Rick said, grossly misrepresented in how they are marketed. And the propaganda associated with them is very dangerous in misleading individuals who really do care that people get the help that they need if they're in a challenging or difficult or unstable place. So playing that emotional heartstring card really puts a lot of good people in more jeopardy. And you alluded to this with personal protection orders and, stay away from me, protection from abuse orders, PPOs. Now, problem with that being that if a woman has a order in place, her residence is listed, the attacker or person that she's trying to distance herself from is made aware in place, and the likelihood of paperwork has been initiated tends to go up. So many women find that they need to find a means to protect themselves and their children, and they go out and procure a firearm and get training. Now, should their attacker become knowledgeable about that, they could, and I can't cite a specific case, but I know a number of women who've been very concerned that they will be called in on a red flag charge, which would render them further defenseless by their attacker making that call and that claim anonymously or facilitating it otherwise. So it really does put those individuals in more significant jeopardy, and that is dangerous and very, very scary. We really can't be helping attackers do what they do.
It is. If there's no hard concrete way to go in for, let's call it the way we often see it, is that there's a man that beats his wife, and they're in an abusive relationship, and he's the one that acts on all of this. If he knows that he can say that she's attacking him, then he can have he can have her guns taken away. She's the one that gets red flagged, and then he can continue to abuse her and continue everything, which is completely ridiculous.
I want to bring up Earth on YouTube said that, and right on topic with this, red flag laws are proof that laws exist in blatant opposition to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Nowhere did the Founding Fathers say, act first and figure out rights later.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly, man. One of the hallmarks of our systems, man, is that you're innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. Red flag laws, they punish you first. They conduct a raid upon your residence. Your home is searched without a hearing that you're allowed to attend. They deprive you of property, and if they don't kill you, you then have to pay the cost to have your day in court, which is completely backwards. Every state in this country, there is a process that is defined in the law where if a person truly feels that another person is a threat to themselves or other people, that person can be picked up for a day or two under official observation until a court can make a determination. Red flag laws are completely unnecessary.
I want to get one more comment in here, and Iron Horseman on YouTube says, most anti-gun laws are misrepresentative to get to get people that aren't paying attention to vote for them. They should be illegal. Truth in advertising should apply.
Yeah, that would be great if they had that, but
Yeah.
that is often not the case. Definitely not.
Well,
Almost all the
usually
time.
what happens. Well, usually what happens, someone will come out with a misleading article, given by the anti-gunners, and a lot of media in, some of our big city, they will just run with the pitch that's been made in the press release without even considering that there might be an alternative viewpoint that might cast this proposed legislation in a less than flattering light, man. I would love for people who are pushing additional laws and controls to, I guess, do the equivalent of truth in advertising when they create their legislation. But, that just means that we as gun owners, as Second Amendment advocates, that we have to remain vigilant. And every time one of these would-be do-gooders is trying to enact legislation in our name for the sake of safety, to actually follow up on what they're doing and making sure that they're accurately characterizing their bills.
Charlie, could I jump in here? I want to take this in a little bit of a different direction. Rick said it very well, and one example of what Rick was talking about was the universal background checks that are so highly publicized and pushed for. Well, what you get with a real universal background check, just ask the people that are out in Washington. If you're at the range and somebody is looking at your really nice brand new SIG or your Glock or your 1911 or whatever, if they're looking at your gun and they start talking to you about, you cannot hand them that handgun and say, hey, fire off a few rounds, see if you like it. That can't happen now, because first you have to go to a FFL and get a background check done. Then you can hand it to them. And oh, by the way, before they can hand it back, you got to go back to the FFL, do another background check, and then they can hand it back. That's what universal background checks is. It's also, if you have a gun that's been in your family for generations, you want to give it to your son or daughter, and your son or daughter has never been in any problem, never had a problem, doesn't matter. Universal background checks means you can no longer just give a gift of that 1950s revolver to your son or your daughter. Now they've got to go with you to the FFL, do a background check, and it's really a backdoor to registration. It's my opinion.
I'm with you. I had this conversation with one of my friends a few years ago about the ridiculousness of universal background checks. And what I got from him is, well, somebody passed a background check when they applied for their license, but they could have done something that would prohibit them from passing a background check now. And I said, listen, if they did something that's going to prevent them from passing a background check when they're, let's say it's a robbery, whatever, or let's say it's a DUI, for God's sakes, because we know that, we're law-abiding people and law-abiding background check passing people. But let's say somebody gets a DUI. The DUI is going to prohibit them from being able to have a gun license. When they process all the DUI paperwork, they're going to see that they've got a gun license. They're going to take the gun license, and then they're going to take their guns, and he's not going to pass a background check. But up until then, he's going to pass a background check. And what I ended up, we had this long conversation about all this. Long conversation. It was a back and forth. It was a fun argument. What I ended up saying is, I said, listen, if you think gun stores aren't doing background checks like they're supposed to do, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 10 $100 bills. You're going to take $1,000. You and I are going to go into a gun store. You're going to buy a gun. You can buy a $200 gun and keep $800. You can buy a $500 gun and keep $500, or you can buy a $1,000 gun and keep a $1,000 gun. Yeah, I'm giving you $1,000 to go into a gun store and to buy a gun, and let's see how this nonsense goes. And of course, putting my money where my mouth was, he decided to back down and say, yeah, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do it. I'm like, then why are we having this discussion? And then it kept going. I said, listen, here's the scoop. I go through background checks for my Mass license, for my New Hampshire license, for my Utah license, for my Utah instructor license. For my job, I have to go through background checks. And I asked him, I said, how many background checks have you gone through? And he's like, well, I'm not a criminal. I said, but you should still go through a background check to prove you're not a criminal, because I don't know you're not a criminal. And I said, you could very well be a criminal because you haven't passed a background check. I hung up on him, and we haven't spoken since.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been 3 years. And this is a guy I played in a band with. We traveled up and down the East Coast together.
Story of my life, Charlie, but somehow over the last 15 years of being a gun owner and a gun rights advocate, all people who are anti-gun and anti-Second Amendment, one way or another, they're no longer involved in my life socially. So good job, man. Good job. Good job. Your life is better off.
Yeah, I hate to say it. We spent a lot of time playing together, traveling up and down the East Coast and hotels, and we went to Aruba together for a gig and all sorts of stuff. But I haven't talked to him in over 3 years. Actually, the last time I talked to him was just after the GRPC in Dallas, which was I flew out, and that's the night that we woke up the next morning, and that's when Vegas happened, and we got into an argument a week later. Haven't talked since then.
Wow.
Well, I find it fascinating. We see a lot of people come in interested in firearms, and whether they purchase or not, they look at coming into the gun shop as an opportunity to either try to teach us something, put us on the spot, or get into a heated argument. And the problem is that what they're met with is a lot of welcome and warmth, and we're going to hear you out, we're going to listen to your concerns, and then we're going to myth bust. I like to call it myth busting more than answering your questions, because most of the time it's not questions. It's rhetoric and misinformation that we need to squash. So most people are not aware that there's really only one document in the United States that a good upstanding citizen, that's a. So if you're a permitted concealed carrier, that's proof that you're a good upstanding citizen. So why vilify us, the people who are carrying concealed? Because we have gone through the work to prove to you that we are, and our communities and our state, that we are good people. So they should look at us in a different light of, oh, well, that's good. We're the good guys, right? We're the A-team. But no, we're the scary people that are looked at as vigilantes and loose cannons when we've just proven that that's not who we are.
I've been doing this since I got a gun license. If I go someplace and somebody asks me to see my license, straight, no smile, no funny business, my gun license or my driver's license or my gun license. And then I wait for the answer, and they're usually like, whoa. That's just
what type of people are asking you for your identification?
Well, I know it's been a long time, Rick, but they used to ask me for a driver's license when you go buy some booze. I was at a bank.
Oh, okay. This wasn't something fairly recent. I'm looking at all this gray that you got there, man. Nobody's carding you now.
Oh, thanks, man. You know what? Thanks, man. Oh, Paul, we can't hear you. I can't believe this, but we can't hear you.
That's because when I started coughing, I turned my mic off. I've got a good friend that, and this is way off to the side, that has a pilot's license. And that pilot's license has gotten him out of a lot of speeding tickets because he will, when he gets pulled over, need to see your license, he just pulls out his pilot's license and hands it to him. And of course, often that leads to just a nice, easy conversation with the officer. Sometimes it's, well, you're not in your plane today, here's your ticket. But that's I love the guy, and I was kind of surprised that there were actual I knew everybody got a certificate when they got their pilot's license, but I didn't realize you got a piece of plastic that looks a lot like a driver's license. I want to get to two social media comments if I could. Brent Amsden says Rick is brutal, and so I wasn't Brent one of the guys that was at your training this past August.
Yeah. He was, and you know what? I am always on the lookout for talent. I am on the lookout for women and men who are trained firearms instructors, range safety officers, and let's not overlook the importance of gophers, people who are willing to do whatever to make the event flow so smoothly. And I am graciously accepting Tatiana's uh, request to come on out and join us. You are welcome with open arms. I want to introduce you to everybody in the local community. And you know what? The thing about my event that I really like to see, I really like to see women instructors actually lead the training, and the training in the classroom, and actually doing the bulk of the one-on-one shooting. It's always been a focus of mine to get more women firearms trainers. I feel like, for many, instances, I feel really good that so many women are, getting their concealed carry permits. But I'm a huge supporter and booster of women becoming trainers. And on that end, what do you think that could be done to get more women to pursue being firearms instructors, trainers?
Getting them to start shooting. Point blank. The more people
Getting them to start shooting.
Yeah.
Is a big one, and what you got to get hooked. You got to get hooked, and you've got to find a community that's welcoming. And we find that organizations like A Girl and a Gun, the Well Armed Woman, for example, are two fantastic organizations that are in this country that are facilitating getting more women to the range and providing an ongoing experience. A one and done will get your feet wet, will get them excited and interested. So then you have to have an opportunity for them to come back and continue on with that process. And then it turns into a nurturing and a mentorship, which is a bit at A Girl and a Gun, making that individuals get it and move forward and up the ranks, because there are more. We just had 21 million guns sold in 2020, and the last number that I saw from the NSSF, when the number was only 6 million since the onset of COVID, was that 40% of those new sales were to women. So we need to create opportunities for them to come back and to continue on, to realize that there is a place for them. And I would like to say that the overall culture of the firearms community is shifting to a not just lip service to wanting women to participate at a higher cadre level, but to actually welcoming them in at a cadre instructor level on training staffs at ranges and organizations beyond just the women's only community. So the NRA does a phenomenal job of that. The USCCA does a phenomenal job of bringing up new instructors with quality material and educational materials. We just need to continue to tell people it's possible and that we want them there. We want to see them lead.
I want to bring up one more comment that came through on social media. Eartha says, I will date all bills of sales the day prior to when universal background checks are law. And that's kind of a cool idea for about the first 30 days of the law. That's, or if you have
eventually going to catch up.
Yeah, if you have a firearm that was manufactured after that day, that's not really going to work. Of course, I don't know about you guys, but it's been years, and I mean a lot of years, since I've sold or a firearm that's been in my possession has left my possession. I'm an acquirer, not a trader.
The way I see it is this. I've been telling people, I said, I tell people I don't get selling guns, but I do get buying used ones. And that's usually the end that I like to be on. I have every one I've ever bought. And that's just the way, really, the one thing one person told me was he would sell something to acquire something else. I'm like, okay, I guess I can get that.
Rick,
usually when people start talking about the universal background checks, yes, there's the state specific instances on how do you treat used guns, from my take, it seems to be a veiled attack on trying to get background checks and more stringent controls on long guns. Long guns. When we look at what it takes to carry a long gun, obviously no sane person is trying to carry them concealed, but by and large, most bad things that criminals do with firearms, it happens with a handgun. So I can see that being their focus. But how do we get these people to stop bothering and harassing law-abiding citizens who are buying guns at the gun shop and do something credible that's going to take guns out of the hands of criminals? I mean, that seems to me where their focus should be, but they're just fixated on taking away current rights from people who are already owning and carrying and possessing guns, and just restricting the numbers of people who can do it lawfully. I just don't get those anti-gunners, man.
What I've noticed with the, I'm in Massachusetts, and what I've noticed with the Boston Police Facebook page is they'll go through spurts where they'll put a story up where they arrested somebody for, illegal possession of drugs or intent to distribute drugs, being a drug dealer and having a gun. And the stories will always, always, always say, one more gun off the street. And I will share these on my biz page, and I'll say, it's one more gun off the street, but the criminal's going to be back out by lunchtime because we have a revolving door of justice. And when we give them a second chance and a third chance and a 12th chance and a 17th chance, it's certainly frustrating for us law-abiding folks to say that, okay, so these people are gun owners in that they have a gun, but they haven't gone about getting them legally. I love hearing the stories also where they're like, well, 17-year-old kid, shot 2 people and robbed someone on the subway. We should do something about teenagers getting guns. Like, they didn't get it legally. They didn't go to a gun store. They couldn't have it transferred. They don't have a permit because you can't have a handgun unless you're over 21 in Massachusetts. So how do we propose, making something illegal that's already illegal is what I like to tell them.
Yeah.
You make it more illegaler.
There we go. It's add the ER. That's what it does.
Is that like the double secret probation from Animal House?
From Animal House, right, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
They're on double secret probation. Like 7 years of college down the drain. Oh, man. One of the other articles I wanted to bring up is some of the terminology, and I know a lot of people say that we need to take the language back from the anti-gun folks. And one of the things that I've been doing is I've got a list on my phone of all of these terms that people use that come from the gun world, and I want to somehow put these all together and write about them somehow. But I saw an article in Arkansas. They want to change the duty to retreat to a stand your ground law, which also ends up in those terms. The other term that gets kicked around is there's, and I think people don't get it, is there's a difference between duty to retreat and stand your ground and self-defense. And we say all the time, listen, you're at the grocery store, you've got a right to protect yourself, but you should probably leave unless they're threatening you. And if they're threatening you, then you have the right to be able to protect yourself.
However, keep in mind that the problem and the disconnect here is that people don't often well define. You have a duty to, Maine is a duty to retreat state. We have Castle Doctrine, which extends, we're also constitutional carry. We have Castle Doctrine extends to the insides of our vehicles. However, we are a duty to retreat state if you're not within your home or within your vehicle. And the way it's written is that if you have an opportunity to leave or use less lethal force, you're obligated to do so. But deadly force is the key here. If you are attacked or threatened in the grocery store parking lot, to what degree are you being attacked or threatened, and is deadly force the solution? So as it relates to stand your ground, as it relates to duty to retreat, it's written in the construct of do the right thing, don't play stupid games, win stupid prizes, go dangerous places, dangerous people, be smart. However, for the concealed carrier who's preparing for the fight of their life, you're putting us in, you're backing us into a literal corner, because now you're telling me that in that moment where if I don't use this firearm, I die, I'm obligated by law to take 2 steps backwards before I can take a step forward to save myself. And that's a really dangerous place to put us in.
You're preaching to the choir. You truly are. You know, the fact that the law is going to require me to make an attempt to retreat. You know, who's to say a prosecutor, when they're reviewing the videotape, if it exists, that you made the correct attempt, that you didn't go in the right direction, or your attempt to retreat wasn't done with enough vigor? I mean, here's the thing. Just because you have the right to stand your ground to defend your life does not mean that you're obligated. Personally, myself, if I can avoid a situation without even having to use lethal force, I probably would avail myself of that opportunity, due to the fact that there is at least a couple of individuals I know who are, you know, good guys, who actually had to go through the whole experience of being put on trial for the fact of they dared to defend themselves and other people that were with them, and had to undergo, you know, the full, you know, trial by jury thing. And luckily that he was exonerated of all the charges that he faced. But I don't think there's anyone that I can think of that would voluntarily put themselves through all of that scrutiny if they did not absolutely have to do so. I don't think anyone relishes using a firearm to protect themselves, but at the end of the day, when we strap up a gun and we carry it with our carry permits, or you live in a free state that doesn't require a permit, you know, we don't relish the opportunity, but we're glad and we're thankful that it's there. So in case we need it, that we can go home and make, you know, and be with our families.
Yeah, you know, some things that people don't think about, and I'm sure you're talking about Marcus, is
Absolutely.
he ended up spending what, $50,000 in legal fees, $50,000, and he spent a year in house arrest with a bracelet on his ankle, and then he found out a couple years afterwards that the paperwork that the government was supposed to do to make sure he was okay, they didn't do this. So he found out 2 years afterwards he wasn't even supposed to leave the state, which is ridiculous.
Well,
Absolutely.
you know, here's the thing about his case that really is very sobering. The fact that the state piled up the charges, they pretty much had a great idea that he wasn't going to get out of that incident scot-free legally, due to the fact that most people don't have ready access to, let's say in his case, $50,000. Right. And I'm not sure if you have any sponsors on your show that have a product, man, but for those of you who are listening to this show and you carry a gun or you lawfully own a gun, by all means, think that whole self-defense thing completely through. And let's assume, for whatever reason, that the police, the prosecutors, their take on your incident, they disagree with you and they wish to prosecute you. Please have a means of successfully, or at least having an opportunity to defend yourself. Have some type of legal protection plan. I'm not going to endorse any particular product. I'm just going to say this. Do your homework, do your due diligence, and spend the small amount of money every month just to protect your future and your safety, you know, if you are ever forced to defend your life or your loved ones.
I agree.
You know,
there's
honestly,
a lot of them.
The cost of some of this stuff is less than your stimulus check.
Much. I'm going to go ahead and mention a few because I'm affiliated with several in different areas, but Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network, Texas and U.S. Law Shield, USCCA, Second Call Defense. There's a bunch of them out there. If you own a gun, like Rick said, do your research, find out what one fits you best, but you need to belong to one of them. I want to bring up one other comment, And Tatiana, I think this is going to be right up your alley. Eartha on YouTube says, "Stop treating women like they need a special gun, lightweight gun. My wife's favorite pistol is our 357. It's insulting to consider her a subpar shooter simply because she's a woman." Yeah, and this lightweight gun, I've shot some lightweight guns, man. They're among the harder ones to shoot because the smaller the mass of the gun, the higher the recoil. Tatiana, I'm going to give you first. I'm going to give you the next crack on this one.
Absolutely. When I work with a new female shooter, I want to put her into the best firearm for her. And that often is not the same firearm that her well-intentioned significant other, sibling, son, brother, coworker, or the dude behind the gun counter thinks is best for her. There are a lot of features on a lot of firearms that are sold and marketed to women, but they may not be relevant for that particular user. And what you just said is absolutely right. The smaller the gun, the lighter weight the firearm, the more that firearm transfers the recoil energy into you. It has less mass to absorb that. So it goes into you. So if you have any grip strength issues, manual dexterity issues due to rheumatoid arthritis or potential carpal tunnel or any kind of normal human hand, wrist, elbow, or shoulder injuries, you want a more full-size, larger frame gun so that it takes the brunt of that force. And it fills your hands out better. So I love it when I get women who come in and they say, look, this itty-bitty little thing, I'm so excited about it, it's so cute, and it's in the cute little color. And then they shoot it, and they are like, ooh, that wasn't fun. And I'm like, you're right, it's not a lot of fun. So here, and I'll take my Wonder Blaster 6000 out, and I'll be like, try a Walther, okay? Enjoy a full-size gun for compare and contrast, and it blows their mind. It blows their mind because they can control it. They're accurate, place rounds where they want, and they feel in control. Safety. I'm not talking complacency. I'm saying if you can be in control of that firearm mentally, emotionally, and physically, you're going to be a much safer individual with it. So I think this really, the root of this problem is at the gun store and at the dudes in the household. You know, put a little faith in your female loved one, and the best thing that you can do is set her up for a private lesson where she gets to try out an experience of spectrum of firearms and get properly fitted for the gun for her.
One follow-up question I'm going to lob back over at Tatiana is, can you spell out some common modes of carry for women, like how they should or can carry a gun? I know for many women that I come into contact with, that is always the huge issue. And I will go on the record to say this: I am not an advocate of a woman carrying a gun in her purse. Lob your bombs away.
Preach it. I am not an advocate of off-body carry for so many reasons. It is one of the hardest and most challenging carry locations and positions to commit to and to execute well. So for women and for men, carrying on body is the way to go. Now, up until very recently, we had a belt shaming issue. Most women don't carry concealed on body because it historically meant that they had to wear a belt. And for, vanity reasons, comfort reasons, physical ailments, you name it, all the way up to I live in yoga pants in quarantine, or I work in scrubs all day and I don't wear garments for my uniform that allow me to wear a belt. Many women will put that into a bag or purse as a result of that. So we want to find ways for them to carry on body. And your body type largely dictates where you're going to be successful carrying. Your body type plus the combination of the firearm are where I do a strategy of sequence of strategies to place that firearm perfectly on you, where it just disappears on your torso and it's comfortable to live in. So lots of great products out there. None of these companies pay me to talk about them. If you're a belted person, Blue Alpha Gears low profile EDC belt is buckle-less and super comfy, and it doesn't print at all. And then the most interesting and innovative new product in the market that gets us away from the traditional belly bands, which have their own issues, or the yoga pants that have built-in compartments for a Velcroed-in holster, for example. The newest beltless option is a product from Philster, Phlster, and it's called the Enigma. And that product is a game changer for men and for women for beltless concealed carry. Oh my goodness, I'm most excited in 2020 about some cool stuff that me and the guys at Walther with the Walther Defense Division have been working on that we get to release in 2021, which I can't talk about yet. But the Philster holster is by far the most exciting product that I have seen in a lot of years for concealed carry and getting more women to carry concealed.
Yeah, John and his wife have put out a great product, Sarah. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, even for big guys like me, I'm 50 plus years old. I don't have the flat stomach. I don't have the body I had when I was 25, 30 years old. Even for me, if I adjust it right, everything disappears. And the only negative is some of the old school people are, well, you're carrying appendix, you're going to blow something off. When was the last time? My answer to that is, when was the last time you had a gun in a holster go off? Let
me tell you, I carry appendix, so I get a lot of the same comments you get, but here's the thing. It's most comfortable, it's accessible, and if you keep your finger off the trigger, you won't shoot yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Exactly.
All right, we got 3.5 minutes left.
All right, very cool. We're going to quickly go in reverse order, if we may. 2020 has been a crappy year for a lot of people, but what is one of the highlights you had this year? We're going to start with Paul.
Well, for me, I've had two highlights. I left my job is one of my highlights. I had been a trucker for 20 plus, well, almost 20 years, 19 and a half years. I was a trucker, and I had got the opportunity through the great people at Second Amendment Foundation to come on board with them and be their deputy director of new media. And that by far and away is the highlight of my professional life in 2020. Also, I mentioned earlier that training that I had. It had been a few years since I'd had professional training. That was a lot of fun. I got a lot out of it. But my absolute highlight, even personally, I'm just going to say this, is that switching jobs, being home every day, I get to spend, even if it's only a couple hours, I get to spend time with my sweetheart every day. And my life is just so much more happy than it used to be. So for me, 2020, there were issues, but it certainly didn't suck for me.
Awesome. Rick, how about you?
For me, it starts and it ends with the pet project that I've already talked about that started with just 50 participants. They grew to be the tail that's actually wagging the dog, training over 1,900 women how to shoot in 2 days. I believe, looking at some of the plans and conversations I've had, I may actually be shooting for 4,000 women being trained in 2 days next year. I haven't firmly committed to that, but I think that target will be in the ballpark of what we're looking to do today. And of course, being a CPL trainer and a firearms training counselor, teaching people to be firearms instructor, I am always looking out for more women who want to be trained to be firearms instructors. Reach out to me and let's have that conversation.
Awesome. Thanks. Tatiana, how about you?
Well, all in all, there was a lot of crazy this year. However, there were so many more positives for myself and my family than I would like to even think about the negatives. One of the exciting things professionally, aside from the A Girl and a Gun National Conference being such an amazing, awesome success, was I was invited to join the Walther Defense Division. I'm part of that shooting team or group. So that was a huge honor and an amazing company to be affiliated with and work with. And then transitioning into a homeschool environment on the home front. I thought I was a good educator before homeschool. I got reschooled on how to school. through this COVID quarantine thing, homeschooling. And I've learned more about teaching and delivering information and breaking down concepts, which has only made me a better firearms instructor. But it's been a wonderful transition for my kids and my family. And just like, we've mentioned before, this year has given me so many more opportunities to spend really quality time with the people that I love. And I couldn't be more grateful for that.
That's awesome. For me, my highlight was this. I was able to continue my show. I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to handle things with travel bans and all this sort of talk. But this year, I was able to put out shows on every other month, or every other week is when I put shows out, and I did shows in 9 new states this year. So I'm excited about that and happy to keep that going. All right, with that, it is
how many
time
states
to call
have you
the
been to?
show. Oh, I've been to 26 states and Washington, D.C. My goal for this year was to try to get all the states east of the Mississippi, so I didn't have to go too far. And I am going to say I have 4 states east of the Mississippi that I have not done yet. So that's what I got. So I do need to get on the other side of the.
Have you been to Michigan?
I did. So. Yes, I had Marcus on the show.
You've been to Michigan and did not see me? What?
Look, we're going to talk about this afterwards, but somebody had some health issues.
Dude, you actually confessed during an interview you came to Michigan and didn't see me.
You were having a tough time with life at that time, man. That was when you had some health issues and you couldn't make it happen.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Dude, I got you in Detroit. I got you in Chicago. We're good, man. All right. Anyway, listen, do you remember this? This was only 2 years ago.
I do remember, man. I do remember, but that's okay.
Right.
That's okay. I'm not going to be hurt, man. I'm not going to be hurt.
He wasn't available. It's not my fault. Really.
So tell the good folks. Tell the good folks who did not, I guess they wouldn't see it anyway. Well, it's been great being on the show, man. And next time that you want to have a Michigander on, that state next to Illinois, next to Indiana,
yep,
Ohio, that area, you know where to find me.
Awesome. Do you want me to close it out, Paul? Or do you want to?
Do it.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank Tatiana, Rick, and Paul for having us on the show. And you can check out all of your favorite podcasts, all of your Pro Freedom podcasts in one place at sdrn.us. Thank you all for watching on Facebook. Thanks for listening, watching on YouTube as well. And hopefully you listen to this in the podcast form. With that, I want to thank everyone for listening and watching to The Armed Society. We wish you guys a happy new year, and we will see you all in 2021.